Привіт.
Доброго дня.
Доброго дня.
Вам залучитися до акції «Єдина Україна» і цим самим підтримати нашу силу українську. Поставити свій відпечаток на нашому мольберті.
Треба
Да,
робити.
ми пальчик ваш витримаємо.
Окей, пальчик, так?
Да, є.
Добре, окей, супер. Ага. Ірландський пальчик.
Ірландський.
Да.
Ваня, який пароль?
І?
І тут на
На карті, окей.
Thank you.
Can you say
You're welcome. Can I say some words on camera? Right, so for Ukrainian Unity on Ukrainian Unity Day, so playing my part. So now I get a blue ribbon. Okay, дуже дякую. До побачення, дякую. Bye-bye. All right, that was not staged at all. That's kind of funny that it worked out, but there we go. That's a nice introduction on apparently the most dangerous day ever to have been in Ukraine. It is the 16th of February 2022, and in the last week or so this day has been cited as a day for a possible Russian extended invasion in Ukraine, and it's now the evening. It's coming up to 5 p.m. and so far as far as I'm aware, there has not been a Russian invasion, an extended Russian invasion or anything that's happened in particular today. Now last night there was a cyber attack in some of the banks, and obviously in the last, if you've been paying attention, the last 36 hours maybe or so, there's definitely been a change in the atmosphere on the diplomatic front. There has been, I guess, more of an opening for diplomacy again with some of the statements from President Putin, and supposedly some Russian troops from the Ukrainian border have been recalled to their bases. So if that's happening, that's great. I mean, it's a good sign at least. So, by the way, greetings from Chernovtsi in the west of Ukraine. I'm not so far from the Romanian border and the Moldovan border. I'll go into that a little bit more in the video, but right now the situation is that there is more of a concern of a minor incursion, I guess, to quote Joe Biden when he seemed very, very blunt and candid and maybe a little bit too honest for a politician a few weeks ago when he said that at his own press conference in the east of the country, near to the parts of Donbass that are controlled by pro-Russian separatists. And, listening to the comments from President Putin, which left more of an overture towards diplomacy at the moment, it did seem to leave open the possibility of a military intervention in the Donbass region when he described the situation there as a genocide, which is ludicrous, but that's, he needs a casus belli, or leave his options open for some sort of military intervention, whether he's serious about it or not. So where do we stand right now? Well, I guess in the media, pro-Russian media, we'll say pro-Western media, just to kind of make a dichotomy, and also the politicians on both sides are both going to tell you that their policies, what they've been saying, has been proven correct by the fact that there is no invasion today. How is that? Well, pro-Western media and the American politicians, the British politicians, also the Ukrainian politicians probably, are going to say that, well, deterrence has worked. He was planning to invade today, or Russia was planning an extended invasion today, and it didn't happen because, well, basically the policies implemented, the diplomatic policies and implemented by the West over the last few months have worked, and they've decided not to do what they were planning to do. Now, on the other side, for Russians media, and the politicians have already been saying it, is that, look, these Western fools, mass hysteria, we were never going to invade anyways, and look, we didn't invade on this day. Well, so they both get to basically claim that, their side was right. Russia can say, look, another hoax by the West. We didn't invade on this particular day. We've started withdrawing troops. We're still open to diplomacy. And the West can say, well, look, we deterred them from invading on this day like they were planning to, with our policies, right, of basically showing a lot of support, some more than others, for Ukraine, and, you know, having agreed in part at least some sort of sanction response if there was a bigger invasion, and also arming Ukraine. A lot of countries have sent Ukraine defensive weapons in order to bolster, you know, their attempts to resist an invasion. So unless you are actually in President Putin's inner circle, where you have direct access to it, you can actually know what he's been planning over the last few months, or really since March last year, then you have no way of knowing which side is really correct, or if it's somewhere in between, and whether really the crisis is over at all, or if it's actually going to now have some sort of de-escalation or not. So, I am here in Chernovtsi, and that is related to what I'm going to explain now, which is a lot of my former clients who've lived this our experience with me in person, also consulting clients, have been contacting me over the last week or so, if they have been here, the ones that have been here in Ukraine or planning to come very soon, about what they should do. Should they leave Ukraine or should they stay? Should they stay or should they go? Now I'm going to go into a little bit of my thoughts about how you should plan to react in such a situation. I know that most people who watch the video are probably not actually currently in Ukraine, and you know, it's a bit more hypothetical, but you know, I've seen lots of different opinions about what to do. Some people are saying, no, I stay because it's all just hysteria in the media and nothing's going to happen. Putin would never do that. I find that a little bit naive, personally, to say that, since, well, Russia already annexed Crimea and there's already a war in Donbass and 14,000 people have already died there. So, you know, it's not without undue cause to be concerned about what might happen. And you know, I was here in 2013 and 14, and no one thought, almost no one thought, at least in the general public, that Russia might annex Crimea, or that there might actually be a war in Donbass. No one foresaw that. So you kind of have to plan a little bit, you know, have a contingency plan depending on the level of risk if something happens that's a little bit more thought out, shall we say, then I'm just going to stay and see what happens. So I'd like to make an analogy to like a tidal wave. Like, you might live in a region where, you know, maybe there's earthquakes, or there's occasionally tidal waves that come and they inflict huge damage, but you know, they're pretty rare, and you can't, you know, you're not going to live your life every day worrying about a tidal wave if it happens, you know, every 20 or 30 years, because that's just too rare an event to really plan for it on a daily basis and avoid the whole country or the whole area just because, you know, there's a possibility every once in a while that there's some sort of, you know, natural disaster. But if you have some information, like a government warning that there's been an underwater earthquake somewhere out in the sea, and that there's now a very high risk of a tidal wave in the next 48 hours, well, what should you do? That's a very different situation than just living in an area where there's occasionally tidal waves and earthquakes maybe. Now you have real actionable information that it is more likely than normal that it's going to happen, right? And then you have to make a decision about whether you leave immediately and go to somewhere like higher ground where you don't have to worry about if it happens, if there is a tidal wave, or you just wait out and see if the tidal wave happens. Now, if you wait until you see the tidal wave, you know, it doesn't mean you're going to die, but you know, already you're in a very bad situation, right? You don't really want to be ideally waiting until you see the tidal wave. So that's kind of an analogy I'll make with right now. Like, obviously, I mean, I've been hanging out in this region for over a decade, and you live with the knowledge that something might happen because it's happened in the past. Like, it's happened obviously in Crimea and in Donbass. But you don't plan, you don't avoid the entire region because of that. I mean, you're not going to avoid living in Kiev just because in the past there was, or there is a conflict in the far east of the country. Now, when you get information that, well, you know, there's reason to believe, like there are a lot of troops circling the country almost, like on three sides, and there is intelligence suggesting that they're planning to invade on this day or planning to invade very soon. Do you stay or do you go? Basically, do you wait until you see Russian tanks on the streets? or you try to leave before the Russian tanks are on the streets. Now, I've been here, actually have a big, let me just show you here in Chernovtsi. Since I said it was Ukrainian Unity Day, I don't know if you can see that fully. Actually, I need to get closer with this wide angle, but anyways, there's a big flag up on the town hall there anyways, so you can see that they put a lot more flags than normal here. So let me walk up to the theater square. So having been in Ukraine and seen what happened in the Donbass, I was here also during Euromaidan, the revolution, and I even went up to the last barricade, actually, the third round of barricades in front of the Berkut, where Yanukovych's riot police. And on that day, they were just firing water cannon. It was -20 during the protests. I'm very glad I wasn't there in the day where 100 people died from the shooting and stuff that went on. And I also flew into Donetsk airport around that time, and a few months later that airport had been completely destroyed in the fighting. So I'm aware that like a tidal wave, when these things happen, you don't really, well, I don't want to be there when there's a situation when it becomes extremely dangerous. And yesterday, even if you avoid actual danger of being shot or being caught up in the fighting or civil disturbances in the city itself, it mightn't be that actually the Russian soldiers are here with tanks, but it might be that there's some sort of protests, and then there are we'll say Ukrainian unity people who are armed, and maybe people are pro-Russian armed in the city you're in, and you don't really want to be in the middle of that, I think, unless you're a journalist and you want to cover it, or quasi-journalist like on YouTube. So my basic point is, you don't really, well, I don't think you should make your decision at the point when you see the tidal wave about to envelop, the town that you're standing in, or in this case, obviously, a dramatic increase in the level of conflict. You need to make your decision preferably before that happens. Now, you might decide to stay in any case, and that's what I've been discussing with my, the guys who've been my clients in the past. It's like, and this is the way I've approached it with them. It's, okay, you're in, say, Kiev or Odessa, and first question is, do you really need to be in Kiev or Odessa in particular right now? Do you have a purpose? Are you doing business? Is this something that's really keeping you there? And there could be a perfectly reasonable reason to stay there. Like maybe your family is there and you can't get them out for some reason, or they need to do something really important. Or you're actually working in Kiev and you need to be in situ in order to do your work. Then I understand why you might decide to stay. But if you don't need to be there, like one of my clients who already left about 2 weeks ago, is like, yeah, I don't need to be here. So yeah, he decided to fly out. Second thing is, do you need to use the internet or not? Because if your business or your whole setup involves using the internet, well, that mightn't be working in the case of an invasion. And even if there isn't an invasion, like we had cyber attacks on some of the banks yesterday, well, if the internet goes down or payment systems go down, right, then it might be very uncomfortable to have stayed, right? So if you need the internet for your business and it's really vital that you're in contact all the time, then again, do you really want to be staying in Kiev? Can you make, a contingency plan and put in action now? Go on a holiday for a few weeks. I saw another YouTuber, he took his family and basically they've gone on what's really just a holiday for 3 or 4 weeks from what I understand from his video. And then he doesn't need to worry about the whole thing because he did not need to actually be in Odessa or Kiev at the moment. So that's what I would say, and that's what I've been telling them. It's like, it's going to be an individual decision based on the risk assessment that can change day by day. But if you don't need to be in Ukraine, you can do everything, from another country or another city, which I'm about to get to, then that would be the prudent course of action, and you don't need to worry too much about anything. Here you can see more blue and yellow flags over there. The groups of people look like some students. Maybe it. So what have I decided to do? Well, you see I'm in Chernovtsi. I am in the west of Ukraine, this beautiful, beautiful city. I got the theater that looks like the theater. It's actually exactly the same as the one in Fürth in Germany. And it's We got the Jüdisches House over there, another beautiful building. And as you can see, it looks very similar in a lot of ways to Lviv in the west of Ukraine. And I have come here for the moment because, well, basically I was planning to come anyways to Western Ukraine with Angela and just relaxing, filming some new vlogs up in the mountains. And we're just in the foothills of the Carpathians here. And I had been in Odessa for a few hours, but one of the guys who was on many of my online programs, I was going to film a video with him, and then he was worried about that his flight might be cancelled. So he actually left already on Sunday, so he's not here. So I basically had no reason to be in Odessa or in Kiev. So I said, hey, let's just go to the mountains, or the foothills of the mountains, in this case Chernovtsi, which is a beautiful place, although it looks like it's going to rain in a few minutes. And we are very close to the Romanian border. I can actually be there in less than an hour if for some reason something happens and there's no internet, there's no, we hear that there's been an invasion somewhere in the country and it's time to maybe leave because it feels insecure. Yeah, you can go pretty quickly to Romania. It's going to be there probably within an hour. And so that's pretty easy to handle. Not saying that you only have to come here to Chernovtsi. You could also go to Uzhhorod. It's actually 20 minutes from the Slovak border if you really wanted to be close. Lviv as well. You can get to the Polish border very quickly from there. But Lviv is a lot closer to the north of Ukraine, where there's a lot of Russian troops now currently on maneuvers with the Belarusians. So that was also a place that might have been a little bit at risk because you have the great European plain that stretches across from Russia all the way up to basically Amsterdam. And here the Carpathians are kind of the only geographical feature that kind of produces a bit of a border, so we say a natural border. And yeah, so that is one thing to think about. Which city would you be best off going to where you don't need to worry about anything happening? If you are like me, committed to staying in Ukraine right at the moment, where is the best place to go? And actually just take it easy and have a bit of a nice, relaxing holiday. I have to say that here, having come from Zaporizhzhia in the last video, and just before that, just for a few hours, I was in Odessa. The mood here is a lot more relaxed than we have some, I guess, Indian students. Hello. A lot more relaxed here than it was in Odessa yesterday. Before the announcement that everything was, maybe a little less likely to happen immediately than previously thought. Not that you saw too many people panicking or anything, but people were definitely a lot more tense than I've noticed here. It's a lot more relaxed atmosphere. So definitely, when I was coming up from Odessa yesterday, like it's about 11 hours to get here, and I was thinking that I didn't want to be on that particular road if there had been an emergency to get out. Like Odessa is not too far from the Moldovan border. It's probably about 2 hours to the border. But if that was blocked, then you'd have to come all the way up here to get out. And yesterday we did it without any serious traffic. So I wouldn't want to be doing that trip when everyone else wants to leave. And I think it's the same from Kiev as well. Like if something happens and you need to get out of Kiev and there's no flights, saying I'll jump in a car and I'll come to the border, it's not going to be as easy as in reality as it sounds in practice, right? So you just don't really want to be doing that. You want to be, leaving just before the tidal wave, not actually during the tidal wave, to continue with that analogy. And let me see, is Angela in this cafe or not? I don't see her. So, yeah, time to have another flat wide. Let's go in here to this cafe. Proszę. Tylko której też tu dam. Дякую. Как ты там? Okay. Дякую. So I got my flat white here, and tastes so tasty. So like I have obviously my YouTube channel and I have a reason to stay here. Even you could say I have a reason to be in a city like Odessa and in Kiev because, well, over the last 3 weeks since I made these update videos about the political situation, what's like here on the ground in Ukraine. Well, it's been pretty popular, and I guess I could always film from Odessa or Kiev or Mariupol under war. Well, as some of you have been saying, I probably need to start a second channel that's just about politics and war zones if that's going to be the case, but I don't plan to do that in the long run. I do plan to continue with the Zara experience. But что ты думаешь, Анжела? Ты чувствуешь лучше тут, чем в Одессе или в Киеве? Как настроение сейчас, что мы в Черносах?
Ну, на самом деле почти одинаково. Просто заради безопасности мы приехали на данный момент сюда, в Чернівці, перебыть эту тяжелую минуту, и потом через недельку назад будем возвращаться к себе домой.
Окей, супер. Что мы будем делать?
Что мы будем делать? Кам'янець-Подільськ?
Кам'янець-Подільський, да, мы
Да,
будем
поедем
смотреть.
туда, там фортецю подивимся. Поэтому у нас есть еще здесь дела, поэтому Чернівцы нам очень нравятся, мы их любим, как-никак.
У меня влог скоро. So I'm going to have a vlog very soon from here in Chernivtsi, which I think, as I said, is the hidden gem. I already alluded to it in our Christmas, Drunken Christmas video vlog. And we're going to go and see these amazing castles pretty soon. So basically this is work that I hadn't had actually finished when we were here last time because the weather was against it. So now we get to finish that up. Мы будем сниматься там в Кам'янець-Подільську и Хотином, да?
Да,
Будет
возможно,
классно.
еще поедем в Синевир, но это не факт. Ну, в любом случае, не подумайте, что мы из-за того, что побоялись, приехали сюда. Хочу сказать, что люди себя очень спокойно ведут в этих областях, которые в основном есть в зоне, в опасной зоне, можно сказать. Они очень спокойные, все хорошо, люди себя, никакой паники нет, никто гречку не скупает, спички
Да,
и
конечно.
свечки, поэтому я считаю, что самое главное – это спокойствие людей, то, что люди себя ведут очень правильно, можно сказать, очень позитивно, ничего не отменяют, ведут себя, как и вели раньше.
Супер. Как? Люди должны прилететь в Украину сейчас.
Да, я думаю, кто не боится, то, конечно,
Да,
прилетайте.
но надо план, если что-нибудь опасное случилось, я думаю.
Я думаю, самая безопасная зона это зоны, это области Украины, которые со стороны Европы, это Ужгород, это
Безопасно,
и,
да?
да, безопасные. Ивано-Франковск, Чернівці, Львов. Это 70/30, я думаю. Ну, это тоже более безопасно, нежели, к примеру, брать Харьков, нежели брать Киев, нежели брать Одессу и Мариуполь. Поэтому
Да,
как-то так.
это так. So, from very safe and comfortable and beautiful Чернівці, до побачення, до свидання, see you in
До
the next video.
побачення.
Па-па.